Hello everyone. Before we start today's video, if you could all do me a solid and lightly tap the like button, perhaps share the video about and leave a comment. If you are not subscribed, subscribe as well. It would greatly help this channel. Thank you very much. Hello everyone, welcome back to a Migrant 2 Electric Boogaloo. Before we start today's video, I'd like to take the opportunity to apologise for the lack of content over here last week. The reason why was because I was at a concert on Sunday when I would ordinarily make videos here, but thankfully no concert on Sunday, so I'm able to do this and hopefully be more consistent going forward. As you may have noticed from the title, something about this video might seem a tad loaded, and because of that, undoubtedly this would have gotten demonetized. I can promise you, all is exactly how it seems, but the words from the title are not my words. That's important. Whose words are they, you ask? Those words come from Malcolm Needs, a 67-year-old retired blood expert biomedical scientist that loves rugby and was a chief examiner in transfusion medicine for the Institute of Biomedical Science. As Malcolm is retired, he is able to invest more time into things that he loves. I earlier mentioned rugby, the other would be social media. He is present on Facebook and Twitter. I've in fact linked his Twitter down below. His activity on social media, though, is what has gotten him into a bit of hot water. Not that I think he gives the slightest of damns. I'll get to why soon. On Twitter, I could tell he is somebody that has a zero fudges given stance on a whole slew of issues. More notably though, gender and gender identity. I have for years said good luck trying to creep identity politics into science, or STEM as a whole. Well, it's happened. Not that anyone is remotely surprised. It was always going to happen. It's just whether or not someone's willing to embrace scientific and empirical fact over that of feels. An argument that I had thought and should still be dead in 2015 when I started on YouTube. An argument that doesn't have any place in STEM. Feelings are determined by a number of systems within the body and it's all chemical. Or if you want to give it the more simplistic interpretation, stupidity. Malcolm's posts on Twitter and Facebook have been described as deplorable. So naturally I had to hit the follow because I'm okay with people who do this. I do like the mad bants after all, especially when the person who tweets it doesn't see it as funny in the slightest. So perhaps now I should read a post to you. This one has been deleted, but I have the text of it. Only women have a cervix. There, I said it, it's not difficult. Women also have a right to women-only spaces. Speaking up in defense of women's rights doesn't mean we can't respect how others wish to live their lives. In another post, I swear my head will explode if another person classes me as a cis woman. I am not a cis woman, I am a woman. I have a cervix which no man can claim to have, and biologically that will never change. I am not just tired of this insanity, but I am fed up of being labelled. In before someone says, are you sure he tweeted these? No, these are posts that he shared. I should have specified and been a bit clearer on that. How this all got escalated was that the HCPTS, which is the Health and Care Professions Tribunal Services, were alerted by some grass, snake, snitch, via a senior biomedical scientist at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. So the regulator decided to investigate Malcolm Needs' tweets. Malcolm, though, is a lot smarter than they realised, because he knows the system. He's been involved in it, or had been for a long time. This is his life's work after all. And so he knew the system had become well and truly corrupted, and that these very tribunals, hearings, investigations were nothing more than a waste of time. So when the HCPTS had reached out to him to attend the Health and Care Professionals Tribunal Service disciplinary hearing, Malcolm simply said, how many times do I have to tell you that I want nothing to do with your kangaroo court, and that if I get one more email about this, I will take legal advice about harassment? I like this because it tells me he is well aware that they are just as sensitive and has played a reverse Uno on them. Maybe he should have his own hearing on them and make them attend it as well, where he can flay them for being useless and incompetent. Then again, if I get to the tweet I sent him with a conversation he and I had, oh boy oh boy. So while I was writing notes for this video, I decided to tweet at MalcolmNeeds54. Silly question, but I am genuinely curious. How hard did you laugh at the HCPTS when they decided to strike you off for having independent thought? Malcolm replied, I didn't laugh at all. Independent thought used to be legal in my day, to which I did offer a correction and said the madness that is set into science as a whole is tragic and embarrassing, to which Malcolm replied, you should have seen the illiterate and ungrammatical email they sent me to tell me I was being struck off. I pointed this out to them, but they refused to apologise or send me a corrected copy, to which I finally replied, that's pathetic. They should at the very least offer you a corrected version. How can anyone be expected to take them seriously when they lack the capacity to spell? It was because of that, by the way, I then got a follow from Malcolm. I followed back. Worth it. On Malcolm's Twitter, he had put out a tweet that included a passage from the letter, with the tweet reading, but in this ever-changing world in which we live in, which was a Paul McCartney grammar slip-up. Underneath, you will no longer be able to work in the profession that you were previously registered in, which is HCPC's grammatical error that they refused to correct. 10 points to your respective Hogwarts house. If you can tell me where the grammatical error is, it should be fairly obvious. Now, based on the information that the Tribunal had access to, so basically all his social media posts, they decided that he was guilty of posting seriously offensive and discreditable things. Doodahs, whatsits, whatchamacallits. I wish this was a joke, by the way, because seriously offensive is bollocks. And discreditable, well, I looked through his Twitter. None of it's discreditable. It's entirely somebody that has taken a stance and position. You believe that because of the position he holds, certainly on social media showing what political affiliation he tends to lean towards, that he is, well, more akin to that of someone who's committed the crime of wrongthink. And I can't believe I've had to say that as well. So perhaps instead we should address a few other of his posts, because it is relevant and important. And I'm going to insert this disclaimer. Several of his highly unprofessional tweets were found by that same panel to demonstrate sarcasm, hostility, and an offensive and derogatory attitude towards protected groups, including stating that only women have a cervix and other referring to feminists as bra burners, along with having prejudice against immigrants and feminist issues, as well as inflaming gender discrimination and inciting racial hatred. All the freaking buzzwords. So in one tweet, Malcolm Needs had said, there have been an awful lot of ignorant people on here saying that I hate women in work, and especially if they are people of colour. This was the staffing in my own lab just before I retired. The 3 non-POC women are a Portuguese woman and 2 Australian women. Strange that. That is one of the most diverse looking labs I've ever seen, and there's still too many white men in it apparently. Now let's go through some of the things he has said that were used against him to get him struck off. Yeah, that's the punishment, by the way. When speaking about migrants crossing the channel, he had tweeted, and make them pay, like they paid the people smugglers to come over in the first place, and give our own taxpayers a rest, while also sharing an image that stated putting illegal immigrants in a 5-star hotel has saved the hotel industry, so let's save the airline industry by flying the effers back home. Several posts took shots at Black Lives Matter, which Malcolm firmly believes is trying to rule this country, as well as Black History Month, which the biomedical scientist said demeans and insults non-Black history. And in a related post, he had said it would appear that Black Lives Matter, but not those of other ethnicities. Another knife crime, Cressida Dick and Sadiq Khan. What's your score for this year? And in a follow-up tweet a few days later, he tweeted, gang members jailed for a brutal street unaliving of NHS worker, yet another case of Black Lives Mattering. The reason, by the way, and as a finishing point, that the Tribunal decided to strike him off was because there was no evidence of any remorse, reflection or remediation on Malcolm's part, and there remained a high risk of repetition. Well, of course there bloody was. He carried on afterwards. He clearly didn't care about what you thought. You were all a bunch of uneducated plonkers. Times like this make me grateful that I walked away from academia myself, because I don't think I could have handled the inevitable aneurysm brought on by your own stupidity. Enjoy your retirement, Malcolm. Ta-ta, everyone.